Good day everyone. This presentation would be all about a close analysis of the poem To the Moon by Giacomo Leopardi and the response poem ALLA by Giulio Callaghan. To the Moon. Now that the year has come full circle, I remember climbing this hill heartbroken to gaze up at the graceful sight of you, and how you hung then above those woods as you do tonight, bathing them in brightness. But at that time your face seemed nothing but a cloud is shimmering through my tears. So wretched was the life I led and lead still. Nothing changes, moon of my delight, yet I find pleasure in recollection, in calling back my season of grief, when one is young and hope is a long road memory. A short one, how welcome then, the remembrance of things past, no matter how sad, and the heart still grieving. The author, in this case Giacomo Leopardi, created a remarkable poetic work related to the Romantic era. In this era, nature is often the inspiration. I believe this wave of belief in the author's time became influential in this beautiful masterpiece. So what is the first image that comes to mind after reading this poem for the first time? Well, what I see is a heartbroken person covered in this seemingly unfading shroud of grief and despair because of the loss of a loved one who had profoundly influenced his life. Along the same lines in this poem, the person expressed that as the year was coming to an end or full circle, he begins to recall the time where he used to do all of these recollection of memories of the past of his loved one. He is recalling the experience he had with this time of sorrow. In addition, in the lines number 4 and 5, where he says, "And how you hung then above those woods as you do tonight, bathing them in brightness," illustrates how the light of the moon illuminates the darkness of the woods. I think this symbolizes how he considers this loved one as his moon or his light that conquers all these dark elements. He feels in his heart that this person he had lost is like the moon, far away and unreachable. All he can do is look at this moon and hope that somehow this person can feel his love still endures. Also in the lines where he said, "So wretched was the life I led and lead still," implies how the narrator expresses that somehow a part of him dies or wears away after the person's loss. This also makes one infer that they lived for each other and that they were the meaning of each other's lives. Thus, the loss of this loved one might make him feel that there is nothing in this world to live for, and that after the loss of this person, he may have started to live his life miserably and to perhaps even neglect himself. The sadness of being alone remained with him, casting a dark shadow in his whole existence. The author is trying to relate to us the feeling of pain that never really leaves us, even though time goes on and memories fade. Some memories leave scars, could attack you at any instant, and will haunt you forever. So moving on to the response explanation. In this poem, Giulio Callaghan speaks about the story of a child remembering the experience of seeing her father slowly being taken away from her, and how she felt to have witnessed her father's suffering. I want to just quickly touch some very important points in this poem, since it is quite a challenge because it is slightly lengthy compared to the other poems. So here it is. Below the title of the poem, you might have noticed a phrase that says a lunar cycle. If we start talking in terms of science, a phase is the appearance of the illuminated or sunlit portion of the moon as seen by an observer. I thought about the relationship of the whole lunar cycle to the poem, and I came to the idea that perhaps the little asterisk or stars she used to separate each stanza in the poem refers to the end of one phase, and thus explaining a chain of events in her season of grief that happened throughout the whole phase duration. The phase changes of the moon in each cycle could as well symbolize the gradually diminishing hope this person has as the illuminated surface area in the moon becomes less and less. Maybe it could even suggest the idea of life slowly fading away or a change in time. The first stanza immediately paints a gloomy atmosphere when she says a planet of purest sadness. I think this might be the period of time when she felt her father's death drawing closer and how she felt completely hopeless since she cannot do anything to stop time. Looking at each day as if it were the last explains how she tries hard to live what remaining moments to the fullest, because, well, I think most of us would understand how when one of our loved ones has this imminent death, we try to make his or her last days special and really cherish these remaining moments they have so that they may leave the world happy and at peace. The third lunar phase tells the heaviest part of the storm has come, where all this child can do is wait for the end and count his or her father's last breaths. Making references to the moon, the small illuminated portion of it could symbolize the diminishing hope and the slipping away of a loved one's life. In the fourth stanza or phase, I can feel a tone of sarcasm and frustration to what was happening when the passage says, "Oh really, let's all gaze at the moon and have a nervous breakdown since life stinks." One might wonder what the moon here represents. What is in the moon that could give one a nervous breakdown? Well, just to add to the whole lunar phase thing, I think her whole incorporation of phases could tie to how long the predicted time his or her father could live. You know, some people with grave illnesses are told they have only like 2 weeks to 3 months to live, etc. So maybe the reason why the moon could give such a nervous breakdown is that the changing of the phase is an indication that time is running out, like the sands in the hourglass, and any time in this very moment the father will breathe his last. Now I'll summarize the last two phases. The fifth one describes that emotional moment after the father's death happened. Now the grief and despair because of the loss is intensified in here. She's now doing the things they used to do together, alone, and her questioning how she can find happiness now that her father is gone is not only an implication of her missing the father, but also how the happiness of her life lies mainly with him, and this happiness died with his passing. And now the last stanza. Just a quick note that Hale-Bopp is the most widely observed comet of the 20th century, and this confirms their bond. They both love the universe and its mysteries. I like how she ends her statement with a touch of sarcasm when she says, "Great timing, Jack, you're missing everything." It's like at the back of her mind she's kind of mocking him. Why didn't you fight for your life? I thought we're supposed to do and enjoy all these fun stuff together, wishing he did not leave yet when there's a lot to be done and discovered out there. And with regard to the title, they're the same. Alla Luna is an Italian translation of To the Moon, and tying that to the poem, it kind of speaks of the destination. So since time is running out, that's a wrap, and thank you everyone.